Okay, guys. Today let's see about variables and those things. Okay, so let's take this one. So actually here we have defined. Okay, this one. Okay, so here we have defined the provider. Okay, so the provider is AWS region, and then access is secret key. So these things we have defined. So now let's see like how things will work. Okay, so normally in case if you have to create a EC2 instance, so then how we will do it? So if we come here, AWS. So first we have to give Terraform. Okay, Terraform AWS instance. Okay, so you can take this code. So we have seen all these things previously also. Let's do once more. Just copy this one. Data, don't take data. Just start with resource. Okay, let's start with resource, and then you can paste it here. So it is AWS instance, and let's keep it as Ubuntu. Okay, and AMI. Okay, so we can keep the AMI ID in double quotes. So let's take an AMI ID. So go to EC2 launch instance, browse Ubuntu. Okay, so just take this AMI ID, and then here T2 micro, and tags we can give it as Ubuntu. Okay, so when we create an EC2 instance, it will create with the name Ubuntu. Okay, so the resource name is AWS instance, and then name we have given as Ubuntu instance type, and then AMI ID. So we have given these things. Now let's try to create an EC2 instance. Okay. Okay, so before this, what we can do, so for example, if we have to create only one instance, that is fine. Okay, but we want to keep it as variables. For example, in case if you want to create multiple environments, instead of editing this main.tf, we can just edit the variables. Okay, so that we will be able to just modify that file, and we will not be affecting this main.tf file. So what we can do, in case if you want to modify these things, we have to create a file called variables.tf. Okay, variables.tf. Okay, so what are all the variables we can do here? For example, if we see here, so provider is okay, and region we have given as AP South one, right? For example, if you want to create in some other region, we have to edit this one, right? So instead of this one, what we can do, we can define it as variable. Okay, so what we can do, variables, right? So variables should always be defined with thing called var. Okay, so just remove this one. Region should always be defined with var. Okay, var dot, what is this? This is region, right? So region. Okay, enter. So what we can do, we can come to variables. Okay, so variables should always start with variable. Okay, we should always start with variable. If you see, we have installed the plugin, right? So it is all automatically it is showing. Okay, so when you click on that, so it has created this one. So what is the region? So we have to define the region, right? We have to define the region, because if you see this thing, we have defined it as var dot region. Okay, so we are in variables, we have to define variable is region. Okay, and then in case if user forgot to give any location, okay, so by default it will take the default location, so we have to give default. Okay, so default we can give it as AP South 1. Okay, so no matter in case if the user forgot to define anything, it will automatically take AP South 1 as the default. Okay, so AP South 1, it will be taken as default, so we have to define that in this default location. so that it will come. Okay, now we have changed this region and we have defined the variable. Okay, similarly here, what are all the variables we can take? For example, instance type. Okay, here we have given t2 micro. For example, some users they may require like t2 large or t2 medium, whatever it is, right? So what we can do, we can define this as a variable. So how we can define this as variable? So always the variable should start with var. Okay, always it should start with var dot. Okay, and then what is this? This is instance type, right? Here itself we are able to see. Here it is region, right? So we are putting region. Here instance type, so we have to put instance type. Okay, just put instance type. So we have defined this one. Okay, now we have to define the same thing in variables.tf. So how we can define? So we have defined one variable here. Okay, that is done. Okay, now we have to define another variable. So variable will start with variable. Okay, so what is the name of this variable? What is the name? Name is instance type, right? So you just define the instance type. So name is instance type. Okay, so we have to define the default one. Okay, by default, in case if you are defining something, that is fine. By default we can define something here. Okay, so here we can define it as t2 dot micro. Okay, so by default it will take this one in case if you have not explicitly defined this one. Okay, so what happened, we have removed the default, like we have defined it like hard coded, right? So we have removed those things and we have made it as variables. Okay, now what we can do, we have something called output.tf. Okay, for example, you are creating an VPC. Okay, for VPC we will have VPC ID, right? When VPC ID will be created, VPC ID will be created after VPC is created. So instead of going into VPC and checking what is the VPC ID, we can check from output.tf file itself. Okay, otherwise in case if we have instance, we will have the instance ID, right? So instance will have an instance ID. So in case if you have to see those things, we can define those things in output.tf. So what is the use of output.tf? Output.tf is used for seeing the output of certain things. Okay, so let me create one more file. Let me name it as output.tf. Outputs.tf. Okay, okay, so here variable, we started with variable, right? Similarly outputs we have to see here variables. Okay, here outputs. Okay, so outputs to start with output because we have defined single variable, right? Similarly we have to define single output. Okay, so define output. Okay, so we have to give the name. So what we have to get, so from this one, let's get the instance ID, AWS instance ID. We have this AWS instance, right? We have to get the AWS instance ID. Okay, so we have to give a name, instance ID. Okay, let's get that one. We can give any name. Okay, and then after output, in output we will be getting a output as value, right? We will be getting some value, so we have to define value. So if you have some doubts, we can just verify this one. Terraform variables. Okay, see, variables, you will be defining variable and then name and then type. Okay, what is the type you have to define? Let's see some examples. So if you see variable, image ID, and then type, like what type of output you need, so you can give that one, and description. Similarly you can define all those things like session token type, and then what is the status, like this. So we will have multiple examples. Okay, so based on that you will be able to write. Okay, so image ID, whatever it is, we can define all these things as variables. Okay, similarly if you want, you can use Terraform outputs. So if you see, outputs will be defined with output and then instance IP address or instance ID, whatever the name you want to give, you give, and then we have to pass in value. Okay, because the output will be always a value, right? So we have to give the value. So here I am passing value. Now what we have to get? We have to get the instance ID, right? So where we will get instance ID? So instance ID we will get from here. Okay, AWS instance dot instance ID. Okay, so instance name is Ubuntu, So AWS instance dot ubuntu dot id. So when I give this one, actually I will be getting the output. Okay. So outputs AWS hyphen instance dot ubuntu. See, automatically it is giving. Okay. So when you use that plugin, it will automatically give. But what we have to give? We have to get the instance ID, right? So you have to give dot ID. Okay. So this is the one. Okay. When you give this one, you will get the output as ID. Okay. So we can give this output. Now let's save this one. Okay. Now what we have created? We have created variables.tf, outputs.tf, and then main.tf. Okay. Now we have classified this one. So for example, if you want to change the instance type, you don't need of coming and changing here. Okay. We can come to variables.tf. Instead of changing there, you can directly change. Like in case if you want it 3 micro, T3 micro, or else T3 medium, whatever, you can just change here. Okay. By default, it will create the instance there. Okay. For now, let's keep T2 micro. Okay. Save this one, and then you can save outputs, and you can save. Okay. Now go to terminal. Let's do Terraform init. So it is initializing the backend. Okay. It is done because we already have the files. Now let's create Terraform plan. Okay. Now let's go ahead and check whether we have any resources here. So we don't have any instances here. Okay. So we don't have any instance. Let's go here. So we are going to create an EC2 instance. Okay. Now let's do Terraform apply hyphen auto approve. Okay. When you use auto approve, it will not ask for yes. Okay. Terraform apply auto approve. Okay. If you see, we will have this Terraform TF state file updated. Previously we add that VPC. That's why it is. If you see here, AWS instance is creating. Okay. Now Terraform state file, it will get updated. It is in creating state. Yeah. So if you see outputs, we have created output file, right? See, if you see, instance ID is I0A9249. So Terraform state file is also created, and we have created this output file, right? Similarly, if you want to see some VPC ID or any output, okay, some elastic IP or private IP, whatever you have to see, instead of going to that console and seeing, we can directly see here. Okay. So this is the ID, instance ID. Okay, let's go ahead and see. It ends with DAFO, right? So let's go to this one. Now let me refresh. See, instance ID is DAFO, right? Instance ID is DAFO. So we have already got the ID. Okay, so this is how this output.tf and variables.tf works. Okay, now actually I don't want T2 micro. Okay, I need something called T2 nano. Okay, now no need of going to this main and all. Okay, you can directly go here and update T2 nano. Okay, just to save this one, and then you can come to Terraform plan. Okay, meanwhile let me see. Okay, here if you see T2 micro. Okay, now we are going to update it to T2 nano. Let's see. So plan, in plan it will show like what it is going to change. So it has refreshed this one, and if you see from here, if you see from instance type, okay, instance type, it is going to be T2 micro to T2 nano. Okay, now we can directly apply this one. Okay, Terraform apply hyphen auto approve. Okay, so it is refreshing the state. Okay, it has modifying. Let's wait for some more time. Okay, so it's still modifying. 10 seconds elapsed. Meanwhile, let's go here, refresh. Still it has not updated. Let's wait for it to complete. If you see here in the plan, it is showing us 0 to add, okay, 1 to change, 0 to destroy. It is not destroying anything or it is not adding anything. It is just changing the existing environment, okay. So let's see, okay, it is taking some time, okay. So if you see, it is done. So it took almost like 1 minute 13 seconds to modify, and instance id it is same. Now let's come into here. So it is t2 micro, right? Let's refresh this one. If you see, T2 nano, it has changed from micro to nano, okay. So this is how we work with these variables and things, okay. So now in case if you want to remove all these things, we can do terraform destroy, okay. So it will delete all the resources. Like when we create EC2 instances, it will create all the required dependencies as well. Okay. So in case if you want to remove everything at once, it is very tough. So in case if you use Terraform destroy, it will have all the configurations in Terraform state file. So based on that, it will automatically delete all the resources which has been created by it. Okay. So it will take some time to delete. Okay. So destroy is completed, so all the resources are completed, okay. Now if we come here, if we refresh this one, so it will be in the termination state, okay. So now we have seen things like how to create one EC2 instance, okay. Now in case if you want to create like 10 instances, okay, how we can create 10 instances. So let's keep it as T2 micro, because T2 micro is free. Let's keep it T2 micro, okay. Now let's come to main.tf, okay. Now I need this is like we created only one instance, right? We have created only one instance. Now I need 10 instances, okay. So how I can create 10 instances? So we have one method called one method by which we can copy this one, these resources again, okay. We can copy this resource again. Let me try to save this one, and let me try to auto apply, okay. If we do like this, it will what it is saying, it is saying duplicate resource, okay. What is this one? We have to give different name, okay. Let me give it as ubuntu 1, okay. Let me save this one and Terraform apply. So this name should be unique, guys. Otherwise, in case if it has same name, then it will be like showing as duplicated, okay. So it is showing as 2 added. Now let's come to this console. Let me refresh this one. If you see, we have two instances, okay. So two instances are running. So by this way you will be able to create multiple instances, okay. So but this is like you will be repeating the code multiple times, okay. In case if you want to create 100 instances, if you put these resources 100 times, then it will be messed up, right? So we have some other method, okay. Now let me destroy this one. um, okay, so let it destroy. So um, we have something called count, okay. Let me delete this one. So in case if we have to create like hundreds of EC2 instances, then we have to copy and paste this resource content hundreds of the times, okay. So it will be like very complex, and your code, it will not look neat, okay. So what you can do in case if you want to create multiple instance, we have an option called count, okay. So after this instance, we can just put an enter. So here you can put it as count, okay. So count equal to like how many instances you want. For example, if I need 3 instance, you just give 3, okay, and save this one. So if we come here, so here let me refresh this one. So all are shutting down, right? Now let me try to apply this one, okay. Now let's come here, okay. Still it is deleting. Let's wait for it to complete. So that, so when we give count as equal to 3, then it will try to create 3 EC2 instances. In case if you want 10 EC2 instances, we can give the count as 10, so that 10 EC2 instances will be created, okay. So let's wait for it to complete, then we can start with this one. So both the resources are destroyed, okay. Now we have seen count equal to 3, right? Let me save this one. Let me do Terraform plan. Hmm, did this one. We variables.tf delete. Okay, save, clear, from plan. Okay, this one we can keep it as ap dot south 1, clear. So we can use count, and then we have given AMI ID, instance ID, and these things. Now let's do Terraform plan. This count actually we use it with modules. Because of that, it is throwing error. ap dot south hyphen 1, ap hyphen south hyphen 1, save, Terraform plan. Okay, so it has come. So when you are using this variables dot tf and output dot tf, it will not work. So we have to use with modules. So in case if you want to test, you can just directly put all the values and then you can test this count. Okay. So now let's approve this one. Okay. So if you see AWS instance 0, AWS instance 2, AWS instance 1. So it is trying to create all the three instances. Okay. Now let's go here. So you all are shutting down, right? So let's refresh this one. So if you see, we got three instances. Okay. So in case if you want to create multiple instances, then you can do this thing. Okay. Count equal to 3 you can give. Then you will be able to create these things. Okay. Okay guys, that's it for today. Let's see tomorrow. Okay. And the next topics.